right, good morning everyone, and welcome to the first of the deliberations on the 2026 Western Cape Appropriation Bill. The first meeting is ours, which is vote 9 on environmental affairs and development planning. And today we're going to be considering the adoption of the draft committee report on vote 9. And thereafter looking at any potential resolutions and actions that stem out of that particular item. We are welcoming today, obviously, members of the Provincial Parliament, as well as a number of officials who have joined us from the department. And we also have possibly members of the public, although I'm not entirely sure whether or not we have received any formal requests or notifications in terms of that, but we'll get to that in a second. Colleagues, as this is a virtual meeting, I am going to request that members introduce themselves before we start the meeting, after which we will then go into any apologies. We will then introduce the department and the minister, and we will then get into the item. So before we start, I'm just going to ask members of the committee to please introduce themselves.
Good morning, Chair. Derek Wessels, Member Derek Wessels here, and I am a member of this committee. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Chair. I'm Leon van Wyk, a member of this committee. So good morning to other honourable members, to yourself, Chair, to the Minister, HOD and officials. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, committee members. Grant Marie, I'm a member of this committee. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair. Noko Masipa, I am a member of this committee, and good morning to Minister and the officials and our colleagues from WCPP. Thank you, Chair.
Are those the only members present? Do we not have any other members present? Last opportunity. All right. Ms. Nika, can we just confirm then that we are quorate?
Good morning, Chairperson. Yes, we are. You may continue.
All right. Ms. Nikak, before we hand over to the officials and the Minister for introductions, can you just advise if any requests were received from members of the public to make representations today?
Chairperson, we have not received any requests.
Okay, thank you very much. Also, I'd just like to mention before we move on, again, in terms of virtual meeting procedure and protocol, if possible, when you are speaking, it is handy for to the interactive nature of the meeting to have your video on. If you're unable to do so, that's fine. But please make sure that when you have finished speaking, that you turn your video off just to assist everybody with bandwidth, and obviously please make sure that your microphones are also muted when you are finished speaking. All right, I am then going to move on to the second item on our agenda, which is the deliberation on vote 9, environmental affairs and development planning. I'm going to hand over to the Minister. Minister, I know you have a number of officials present, so to save us having to go through everybody name by name, I'm just going to ask that when an official is speaking, that they either introduce themselves or they're introduced by yourself or one of your HODs. So, Minister, I'm going to hand over to you for the introduction on the deliberation on vote 9.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson, and thank you to the Honourable Committee members. I'm Anton Berdel, the MEC responsible for Environmental Affairs and Development Planning. Honourable Chair, thank you for the opportunity to say a few words of introduction before we start the budget discussions of the Department of Environmental Affairs and Development Planning, as well as Cape Nature for the 2026-2027 financial year. 2026 is again reminding us on how dependent we as humans are on our natural environment and natural resources. We still amidst our extreme busy fire season, and we still got 2 months left within that. And even if you look at the weather predictions, it can even be a prolonged fire and drier season. We also understand that we're going to get less rainfall than a normal winter, so we keep a close eye on our water resources. Water security will be a central theme, I think, right through this year, and I expect a lot of interest in how we're going to protect and manage our rainfall and catchment areas, also our river courses. These kind of systems are crucial to long-term water sustainability, and you can already pick up that the water conversation, it's going to be a serious one throughout this year. Then if you add to that population growth and the pressures, then the pressure is on. You can also add economic growth, and getting the balance between our biodiversity, our environmental protection, as well as economic growth. It's always a fine balance, and it's always putting a lot of pressure and tension onto the system. Chair and all the members of the Standing Committee, thank you for your professional way you have engaged with us during this year, but also how you're going to engage with us during this budget process. We really value your input. We value your oversight role, and it's good to understand that the oversight role makes us better at the end of the day, and we accept that. Then to HOD Gerber and CEO Dr. Ashley Naidu, I just want to thank you and your senior management teams, together with all the dedicated officials who've gone out to great lengths to find the support and the overreaching and helping us to implement our provincial strategic plan, etc. Our officials work long hours. They're professional people, and they not always making populist decisions, but doing what is right for our environment, what is right for our biodiversity, with also addressing our biggest evil in our society, and that is poverty. So I'm with those couple of words, Honourable Chair, I'm going to hand over to HOD Gerber and CEO Dr. Naidu to take us through the budget vote. I thank you.
Thanks, Minister.
Good morning, Chairperson, honourable members, Minister, the colleagues from the department and from Cape Nature. Thank you for the opportunity for us to appear before you today. Maybe to start by also thanking, as Minister, have also just done, the Standing Committee for your oversight role and for throughout, pushing for the good performance, for the being accountable, for the responsiveness. Because you will see as we move forward that it has been a particular journey that we've been on. Firstly, the focus is on delivering for the residents of the Western Cape. So the provincial strategic plan, absolute key informant to the prioritization, to the focus, to the areas where we will ensure impact for the residents across the portfolios. And the critical role that this department and Cape Nature Vote 9 plays in delivering on the provincial strategic plan. It is about the growth for jobs, sustainable development, and how do we make sure that we do that in a manner that it's that we both have spatial transformation, but also ecological transformation, that it's sustainable, that we're looking after the needs of the current residents and future residents. But then a critical role, critical linkages across the life course. We follow the systems approach as the Western Cape government in terms of the critical role that we play both in growth for jobs, but also in an educated, healthy and caring society, and as well as critical linkages to innovation, culture and governance, and some linkages to safety. So across the portfolio areas, those interdependencies across the system, and then in the budget as tabled by Minister of Finance yesterday, and the Vote 9 budget, specific areas of delivery being looked at, being invested in terms of those priorities, which we will touch on in the one pager where I highlight certain things, and then CFO will also go into some detail in terms of specific areas where there is investment being made. This is but where we are at in terms of the current stage of the journey. It is a journey. We must thank Provincial Treasury and the rest of the departments for the collective journey that we've been on in this regard. We're always looking at the efficiencies and the effectiveness and looking at, are we doing the right things, or can we do it in a better way? The budgets are limited. The need is great, so it is important to prioritize and to look at those efficiencies. We must thank the teams across the department and all the individuals for, as ministers also touched on, for the continuous commitment and the efforts to deliver for the residents, and then the process that we have been following. We are now shifting gears while we are busy with change management and organizational design process. We still have to deliver every day, but while we're delivering, we're busy with the change management process. We're busy looking at how do we also enable the teams. We must thank the officials for the hard work that they're doing. A key focus is on gearing ourselves for accelerating and scaling our delivery. So a key focus shifts now to implementation, to delivery, while we are busy developing better options in certain programs, which Johannes will touch on, that we're busy developing for the future. Specific part of the strategy, the alternative and blended finance strategy, the budget facility for infrastructure that we're specifically targeting for two of the major programs that's so critical for the residents, for the partners out there that deliver with us, the municipalities, the other departments, and these areas come through. And to thank everybody for the collective effort, and Minister's role in the budget policy committee process, but also more broadly in terms of the strategizing, the prioritization in the province, and for Minister's continuous leadership and support. But with those few introductory words, I'm going to hand over to Dr. Naidu to ask whether he also wants to give a few introductory words, and then we'll give over to Johannes Fritz, CFO, in terms of the presentation that he's put together for the standing committee this morning. Thank you very much.
Chair, if I may continue from HOD Kerber. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Honourable Chair, Honourable Members, Minister Bradell, and HOD colleagues. Just a few sentences to add to HOD. From Cape Nature side, we welcome the support. There is a trend since last year where our requests and our engagements through the department, we are seeing some positive signs with slight increases that I'm sure Mr. Fritz will talk to. So we are seeing some positive. In terms of operational work, our priority over the last few months has been keeping staff safe during the fire season, which then moved seamlessly into the flood season. And last week we went back into the fire season. And we have about 1,000 staff, EPWP staff, Cape Nature staff, little over 850. Deployed all across the province, and with there are trying conditions like the heat wave this week. So we are concerned. We concern ourselves with keeping staff safe firstly, and then delivering the services we have to, and the budget that we are receiving with the slight increases through motivations from HOD, his team, minister, and support from the standing committee. We appreciate the support on that. We have set again ambitious targets, increasing and adding more targets for the coming year, and hopefully we'll meet that. Planning is becoming a little bit more difficult because we are spending larger number of person days on fires and floods. So quarterly targets are flowing into each other. And so we're in a situation of planning operations that we have little experience in because the goalposts are changing month to month, week to week. Teams are being deployed off their base stations to other stations as resources are needed around the province. But we're learning this as we're going, and we're trying to be impactful in our ambitious APP. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Dr. Naidu and Minister and Mr. Gerber. Colleagues, we are now going to go into an opportunity for questions and answers. You would have all received your big blue book yesterday. And just for ease of reference, it's from page 383 to page 439. So what we're going to do is give members an opportunity. Yes, Mr. Gerber.
Apologies, Chair. We do have a presentation by the CFO that just gives an overview. It's a short presentation. Chair, if we may ask a CFO to just give that short presentation.
That's perfect. That's great. Sorry, it just went a bit silent after Dr. Naidu, so I thought you guys had finished. That's great. Thanks. Over to the CFO.
Good morning, Chair and colleagues, and the rest of the officials present on the platform. I'm just going to share my presentation. It's a short presentation. It can just be confirmed if it's visible.
Yes, visible.
Great, thank you, Chair. Okay, so the presentation is going to look on the MTF allocations for vote 9, and then specifically reflect on some of the amounts for 26-27. The appropriation bill for vote 9, resilient, spatially transformed, and sustainable. Same also for Cape Nature, who is focused on enhanced biodiversity conservation, ecological sustainability, and climate resilience. When we compare the allocations over the MTF, it is noted that the allocations will increase from 746.153 million in 26-27 to 798.236 million in 28-29. The funding thereof are primarily through the equitable share portion, which for 26-27 accounts for 92.43%. And then for the department, there is some own receipts of 3.4 million. Then conditional grants, this is only the one grant of 3.265 million. And then additional funding through the Provincial Revenue Fund of 49.705 million. And this is a reflection of the resource composition for 26-27. The EPWP grant, this is a 3.256 million. Is determined on an annual basis based on performance of past years. Some of these new allocations that we received were either reflected as earmark allocations, which is specifically and exclusively prioritized, and then there are also provincial priority allocations that were allocated. This is a reflection of the allocations over the MTF between the department and Cape Nature. The department will increase from 388.348 million to 406.297 million, an increase of about 4.62%. Cape Nature increases from 357.805 million to 391.939 million, an increase of 9.54%. If we look at the funding arrangements for the department, this is the reflection in totality for the department, exclusive of Cape Nature's allocation. Program 1 accounts for 25% of the allocation at 95.496 million. Program 2 accounts for 12% of the allocation at 47.712 million. Program 3 at 6% at 24.428 million. Program 4 accounts for 32% at 124.536 million. Program 5 accounts for 18.815 million at 5%. Program 6, relatively small amount, just over a million at 1.409. And then the last program, Program 7, Development Planning, accounts for 20% at 75.952 million. Programs 1 and Program 4 in totality accounts for 57% of the allocation towards the department for 26-27. For 26-27, we received additional allocations, and together with the additional allocations, they are either earmarked and or they are reflected as provincial priority allocations. So for energy related allocations, we received two amounts for the green economy ecosystem support. These are both in Program 2, and this is to deal with increased water and energy risks, particularly looking at renewable energies and to assist municipalities and the private sector in that regard. Then you will notice some further allocations for energy, but those are in the outer years, and that deals with industrial decarbonization, sectorial emissions targets stemming from the Climate Change Act, and then also the 2050 emissions pathway, also stemming from the Climate Change Act. But as I indicated, these are outer year allocations. Then we received additional funds of 3.452 million for 26-27 for the EIA efficiencies. This is to increase our efficiencies in terms of the decision for EIA applications. We also received allocations for air quality monitoring stations, two allocations, 7.35 and 6 million, and then with the allocations over the MTEF. This is to replace our aging air quality monitoring fleet. Most of them were purchased in excess of 7 years, and they are reaching the end of their lifespan, and we need to replace those. Then water resilience. It's the implementation of a nature-based solution for a water quality improvement, 1 million. And these indicated in green are allocated towards Program 4. Then we have another 1 million for water resilience in terms of the municipal ecological infrastructure investment plans on Program 5. Program 7, the additional allocations for the housing market studies. It's a continuation of our current studies. Then for the RCEP, the entire RCEP allocation has been earmarked, and we will reflect on some of that. And then for the Township Action Plan, allocation of 2.7 million for 26-27. As indicated, Program 2 received an additional allocation of 5.214 million. Program 4, an additional allocation of 17.802 million, of which the bulk is for the air quality monitoring stations replacement. Program 5, 1 million, and then Program 7, 22.158 million, of which the bulk is for the RCEP program. If we look at the provincial priority allocations, our COE is in totality regarded as a provincial priority allocation, and the allocation for our COE is 297.061 million for 26-27, and then it increases to 315 and 325 million over the MTEF. We also received a once-off allocation for the early retirement program and the voluntary exit program of 3.975 million. These are for officials that opted and whose applications were approved for early retirement. Then we've got the Sustainable Water Program, which is ongoing, of which the allocation is 2.536 million. We also have a program in terms of the automation and digitization of processes within the financial environment. This is to improve efficiencies, ensure compliance, and to mistake-proof our business processes within the financial environment. From the 25-26 allocation, there was some realignment for environmental projects of 1.113 million, and they pertain to coastal management lines, the ecological infrastructure investment framework toolkit, and then climate change, the 2050 pathway, and then the Western Cape Special Development Framework, which is in development for advertisement thereof. We also received additional allocations for law enforcement activities. This is to deal with the prosecution of criminal and administrative enforcement. We received also additional allocations for the NEMA Section 24G fines. This is for the processing of these unlawful commencement of listed activities. Further to that, we received a 6.5 million for the refurbishment and extension of our registry. We currently do have a material challenge with space within the registry, and plans were approved to extend the registry. Then we also received another allocation for 1.5 million. This is for a BFI, the budget for infrastructure application for the waste economy and organic waste diversion. It's also one-off allocation that we received, which we need to compile our BFI application. If you look at the economic classification, just to reflect on 26-27, the RTS, as I indicated, are there for noting. Compensation of employees, I dealt with, but if you just look at the vote in totality, it is 39.8% thereof. But if you just look at the department, the allocation of the percentage thereof increases to 76.5%. Goods and services at 55.46 million. That's in totality for the department. Transfers and subsidies, and it is highlighted below, 11.3 million towards municipalities. Cape Nature's allocation of 357.085 million. And then we need to pay our TV licenses. Then we also have allocations for non-profit institutions, which includes our biosphere reserves, and then households. And this is the allocation towards the early retirement that we receive from National Treasury. And then capital assets at 19.367 million. The total earmarked and priority allocations for 26-27 accounts to 363.864 million. If you compare that to the total allocation for the department, which is 388.348 million, then there's only 6.3% available for operational or discretionary expense. We will also notice, if you look at the budget booklet, that a lot of our programs will reflect quite significant increases. And these increases are primarily from these earmarked and priority allocations. Some of it will also be reflected on the economic classification, in particular for the capital assets, which accounts for the replacement of our air quality fleet. This is our personnel expenditure. This is a reflection of the additional allocations that we received as part of our personnel allocation. For ICS, that's an improvement of conditions of services. Then for capacity requirements for economic growth and job interventions, climate change management, law enforcement and compliance, impact management, and then for COE realignment over the MTF. And there's also additional allocations for environmental impact assessment in terms of the spatial mapping program. And then there is an allocation that will come through in the last financial year in terms of the NEMA Section 24G EIA function. Our transfers to municipalities, and these are all under the banner of the RCEP. So in terms of the process, the municipalities were invited to propose projects, and the categories of these projects were as follows. The first category is infrastructure, those existing projects. Then secondly, new infrastructure projects. Thirdly, preparation for a future infrastructure project. Fourthly, local area planning. This is now for specific precincts. And then fifthly, innovative socioeconomic or urbanization related projects or studies. You will notice that one municipality received 200,000. 3 municipalities receive 300,000. There's an amount of 600,000 at this stage unallocated and will be dealt with as part of the adjustment estimate as and when new projects will be considered and approved. Then there's a further 5 municipalities that will receive 700,000 each. Saldanha Bay will be receiving 800,000, and then 3 municipalities receiving 1 million, 1 municipality 1.1 million, Bergrivier, and then Witzenberg will be receiving 1.2 million during the MFF. Just a few notes that for 26-27, we implemented the approved environmental sector budget program structure. So there's some structural changes that were effected. Some of them pertain to name changes, and then there were also movements within the respective sub-programs. I reflected on the ERP and the VEP. This is the first phase of the early retirement program, and 7 officials applied and were approved to exit, and this will be at the cost of 3.975 million funded by National Treasury. A compensation of employees, which is a significant part of the department's allocation. We are currently in the organizational development phase. This is an ongoing phase to align the structure with our current 5-year strategic plan, but then also looking forward in terms of the future of the department. We completed the salary level 7 to 8 pilot project for the province. It was piloted within the department. That has been completed, approved, and implemented as from the 1st of April 2026. We do have a dedicated approach within the department to deal with the prioritization of funding for critical posts and then to track the filling of those posts. There's also significant investment in terms of youth, in terms of the PAY, the Premier Advancement of Youth program, and then also for graduate interns that we made available. We currently have 2 budget facilities for infrastructure projects, significant projects for the province. The first one dealing with the ecological infrastructure to manage key water security, fire, flooding, and land degradation risks. This project at this particular point in time is being done in collaboration with Cape Nature and then Casidra. The new project, not it's entirely new, but the second project deals with the waste economy and organic waste diversion. Compliance in terms of the waste facilities, some need to be closed or rehabilitated. And then also to build infrastructure for supporting these waste facilities, for instance, material recovery facilities. There's quite a significant backlog with regard to waste compliance within the province that is impact on human health and the ecosystem. In terms of Cape Nature, the total allocation as reflected of Cape Nature 26-27 is 357.805 million. It includes the conditional grant EPWP of 3.265 million. So indicate this is an annual grant based on past performance. Then we also have earmarked allocations for Cape Nature. 3 of them are in terms of the disaster prevention. One pertaining to wildfires, floods, and other risks of 20.421 million. Second one for fire preparedness and active firefighting of 6 million. At time of budget compilation, the estimate for firefighting was in excess of 10 million. That potentially significantly increased since then with all of the fires. Then a new allocation deals with water resilience and the clearing of invasive alien vegetation within strategic water sources on the reserves. Then there's a continued allocation for infrastructure upgrades and maintenance of 43.876 million. Cape Nature also received provincial priority allocations, again EPWP, so this is funded by the province of 32.112 million, significantly towards job creation on the areas around the reserves. Then there's an additional allocation to Cape Nature for the compensation of employee shortfall of 2.349 million, and then a further 750 million for the BFI application that have been prepared between Cape Nature, the department, and CASIDRA. You look at the program structure of Cape Nature. Program 1, administration and governance, accounts for 19% of the total budget of Cape Nature. This includes revenue collected by Cape Nature also, that makes up the total budget. Program 2 accounts for 10%. Program 3, conservation operations, the bulk, accounts for 43%. And then Program 4, ecotourism and access, accounts for 28%. 93% of Cape Nature's budget is for its core service delivery pertaining to conservation and then the related biodiversity and ecotourism activities. If you look at the Cape Nature's budget in an overview, their own income includes ecotourism of 75.750 million and other own income of 38.939 million, and then the transfer from Vote 9 at 357.805 million. So that's the bulk of Cape Nature's budget, and it brings their budget then to 472.494 million. Reflection on the economic classifications, compensation of employees, goods and services, and capital assets. Compensation of employees in totality is 254.291 million. Goods and services, 171.368 million. And then their capital assets at 46.835 million, divided within the programs as reflected. Cape Nature infrastructure, they're quite busy in the infrastructure space. I'm still dealing with some of the repairs of flooding of past financial years. The total infrastructure projects for Cape Nature for 26-27 is 43.876 million, and then 45.718 million in 27-28, and 47.136 million in 28-29. These infrastructure allocations will be spent on Vroorlikheid, the Merlet Nature Reserve, Wolwekloof, Stony Point, the Hoop, and Nysberg Nature Reserves, and the upgrading as reflected on there. There's also a portion that's non-infrastructure related, and that deals with the administrative costs of these infrastructure projects. Thank you, Chair. That brings the end to the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Hannes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fritz, and I'm very glad that we had that presentation. And my apologies for almost skipping over it. It was very comprehensive and very good to hear and see the numbers associated with the budget. I think it was a very, very effective and welcome summary. So thank you, Mr. Fritz. You're welcome to pop your video off. Colleagues, we will then move on to the question and answer session with that presentation as our guide. And as mentioned, it's in the book from pages 383 to pages 439. I'm now going to open up to members if they have any questions of clarity or any inputs that they would like to make. Please raise your hands. We have Member Beauty. Well, we had Member Beauty Stoffel. Her hand has gone down. Member Stoffel, do you still? I'll just check if Member Stoffel is. Oh, she's back. Okay, great. All right. So Member Stoffel, your hand. You were first on the trigger, so I'll give you the opportunity first. Then Member Masipa, and then Member Marais. So Member Stoffel, over to you.
Good morning, Chairperson. Am I audible, Chair?
Yes, you are, ma'am.
Thank you very much. And good morning to everyone on the platform, and a warm good morning to the MEC and the entire department. Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity. Let me first appreciate the opening remarks of the MEC and also the HOD and the others. My question, Chair, I will go straight to the presentation. And then, yeah, Chair, in terms of the presentation, let me appreciate the presentation and let me acknowledge the good work done by Cape Nature so far, and also the department itself. But mine is only on the issue of the, as presented, on environmental assessment. When we talk about environmental assessment, what are we talking about? Because my belief is that that assessment should be done by experts, people with capable expertise. And so far, I'm not sure who's doing it now, or I might speak under correction to say that the efficient office for that, I still believe it's from the environmental commissioner's point. And I've heard on the presentation, so the presenter must correct me if pardon me if I'm quoting it wrongly. But for that, there was 11 million reserved for that process. And as MEC have indicated, there's no money to appoint, but that 11 million will be then been used by whom? So if the department can clarify that for me. And then also, in his presentation, he talked about the municipalities that have received some funding from the department. And I want to know, when it comes to those municipalities under the financial recovery plan, or let me ask, what was the criteria being used for those municipalities that have received money? What criteria was being used for them to get that allocation? And though the other municipalities that have not received money from the department, what is the reason for not them to receive? And then also 366, please pardon me, department, if I quote incorrect the amounts, because I have made roughly my notes. It's not been allocated waiting for new projects. If it's waiting for new projects, this project is coming from where? Initiated by whom? So I wanted also to be clarified on that. For now, Chair, for now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Member Stoffel. Member Masipa.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you to HOD and the Minister for the opening remarks. Chairperson, my question will start on page, I think, 392. Yeah, 392. It relates to the summary of receipts. I do note that 2025 revised estimate is there is changes. There's additional 300 million transfers, obviously that is understandable. With regards to interest, dividends, and rent on land, if there can be some explanation there, and also the sales of capital assets, which is also 100 million. I do note that they are once off. About the 100 million, also to understand if it's a once off during this medium term period. Also the interest, dividends and rent on land, if it's once off, and which are those particular pieces of land. I think I was covered with regards to Cape Nature. I must once again really compliment the work that is being done by the department, and especially the Cape Nature in terms of the revenue generation. However, I do note that there is a visible risk with regards to the downward trend in performance targets. Apparently, the number of environmental capacity building activity has dropped from a high of 53 in 2022-2023 to a sustained target of only 41. Yeah, and also I do note that SMME support interventions is also scheduled to drop to 0 in the final year of MTF-EF of 2028 and 2029, and maybe just some clarity there will be appreciated. They also part of the Cape Nature. Obviously, you know, I mean, one would understand that we're coming from COVID, and obviously recovery was taking place. I see the target in terms of increase on tourism is only 10%, whereas you're coming from the high of 43. Isn't maybe 10% a too low target? Maybe just some explanation there will be really great. Chairperson, that's it from my side. Thank you very much to Minister and HOD, Mr. Ferber, and the department as well, and Cape Nature. Just thanks.
Thank you, Member Masipa. Member Marais, last member for this round.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll try and get my camera on. I think that's on now. Mr. Chair, thank you to the Minister and thank you to the department for the presentation. Mr. Chair, just at the outset, let me say that I know that National is expecting the Western Cape and all the other provinces and departments to go through a spending review of all their programs that have been running. We're still in a financially very constrained environment. Just wanted to know, in terms of the spending reviews, if there were any programs that were underperforming and perhaps removed from the this particular department, in terms of making sure that we get value for money. As I've said, that we in a very financially constrained environment despite the increases. But for me, it really comes down to value for money when it comes to the environment. So a lot has been done, but at the end of the day, we are still not winning the race in terms of the preservation of our natural resources. Also concerned just in terms of the, I think it's 2.536 million that was mentioned for that was additional allocation to the rehabilitation program. I see the increase, but I'm also concerned that is that increase going to be utilized effectively? Because our aquaculture sector it has tremendous potential and as a food source as well, protein source, but we are still falling far behind to preserve our environment, to encourage that sector to come through. So I just want to know, in terms of that, whether that is going to be sufficient to rehabilitate our water resources in terms of fresh water, and the marine. And then in terms of the green scorpions, I know nothing has been mentioned about the green scorpions, but if I look at the enforcement, the compliance and enforcement percentage of the budget that is dedicated to that particular function, are we under budgeting to enforce and to protect our natural environment, or does the department feel that we have only sufficient capacity for that particular the increase that was been allocated, or that percentage of the budget is sufficient? Because look, the Western Cape is a growing province, and more we're having people coming into the province and then squatting in our environment. So that means we're going to have more feet on the ground that is going to be needed to be able to respond effectively. So I just wondered if the department could speak to those three items just at the outset for me. Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Member Marais. Minister, I'll hand over to you and the department.
HOD, you can go.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you to the members for those questions. In terms of Member Stoffels, the question on environmental impact assessment and the budget allocated there, and whether the work is done by professionals. In South Africa, the system that was decided for the country is that there are independent environmental assessment practitioners that is responsible for managing that impact assessment process. And for doing the assessments, there are also independent experts, so as legislated. And then our own officials that evaluate those assessments are themselves now registered environmental assessment practitioners. And there are very specific listed activities that require these authorizations, these assessments, with the public participation in all the studies that happen, and very specific legal timeframes for those processes. So we have to ensure that we meet those timeframes and throughout the process, but that also, of course, that we make good quality decisions. It's not just about the timeframes. So there is a high volume of work there, both in terms of what we call the pre-application stages, where people are seeking the Regulation 8 guidance and advice from our department, or we are receiving pre-application notice of intent, where people are asking for advice on whether they do require the approvals and the processes to follow, and who to consult with and what to consider. And then as the draft reports are coming in, and then once they have applied, the timeframes kick in and the commenting periods on the different reports, and ultimately the final decision. Then there are also those same EIA processes. There is the opportunity for people to participate throughout the process, but also if people are ultimately unhappy with the first instance decision, as we call it, if that's made by a delegated official, someone delegated by the minister, then there is a right to appeal to the minister. And then within that process, there's also then an opportunity for the decision maker, the first instance decision maker, to submit a responding statement. So that's also a critical part of the process that is undertaken. And that process, although there's the public participation and the right of internal appeal, there is also, of course, people are able to take our decisions on review to the courts, which does happen. So there's also a lot of litigation, and that happens in the space, and then all the same officials are then involved in terms of the court papers and the decisions on whether to defend a decision or not, or whether we're going to abide. But the highly regulated professional space with the independence by the external consultants, and then our own registered professionals. There's also the oversight that is in place by both, of course, the standing committee themselves, but then also we do the work that we do, and the arrangements that we have in place and agreements that we have in place in South Africa as an environmental sector with the Auditor General, that the Auditor General, the disclosure of information that the Auditor General finds to the other institutions, the Public Protector, Human Rights Commission, the other bodies that are in the country for oversight of the executive, but also of the public service, the officials. Of course, there's a Public Service Commission as well. So that is the resourcing is therefore around that to make sure that we serve that particular need. In terms of the unallocated budget for RCIP and the criteria, Francois Wist is in the meeting, maybe to ask Francois as the RCIP program manager to speak to the criteria, the call that went out to all the municipalities to come forward with proposals, and then the unallocated amount that's there in the process of how we will ultimately allocate that. Francois, if you can come in on RCIP, thank you.
Thank you, HOD and Chair. Yes, as HOD mentioned, we increased the number of municipalities that are supported from 3 in the beginning to 11, and in this 5-year term, the objective is to support 14 municipalities. So last year we invited all municipalities to submit proposals. So according to that, or in line with that, the projects must be aligned to the objectives of RCEP. They must have the capacity to implement the projects. The projects must be good. They must also provide co-funding. And this year, we again invited most of the municipalities, but also focusing or extending the invite to municipalities in the Greater Karoo or the Central Karoo. So yes, I think there's also a lot of ongoing projects that we supporting. Most of the projects are multi-year projects. So we're trying to be fair to all the municipalities and have a good distribution over the province. I hope that suffices. Thank you.
Thank you, Francois. Then to turn to the question by member Masipa, I'll ask the CFO to come in on this was the question on the summary of the receipts, specifically in terms of the interest, the dividends, and the rent on land. If you can speak to that, Johannes, thank you.
Thank you, HOD. So the item or the revenue item, fines, penalties, and forfeits, and the reflection of the increase for 25-26 to just over 6 million. You will notice that the bulk of it is in terms of the fines, penalties, and forfeits. And this is the administrative fines in terms of NEMA Section 24G when there are commencement of unlawful illicit activities. There's a process, and HOD alluded to it. The fines are issued, and there's an appeal process also. But the estimation that in terms of the fines issued is that we will collect just below 5 million for the NEMA Section 24G fines for the 25-26 financial year. Then in terms of the item interest, dividends, and rent on land. So this is, although that is the naming convention of the revenue item, it is only just in respect of interest, and these interests are in terms of bursary obligations, where officials were granted bursaries. They didn't complete their bursaries, and there were some bursary contract breaches, and we recover those bursaries and the recovery to incur interest that we collect from the officials. Then just in terms of the transfers received, 11,000 reflected. This is a once-off. There were some sponsorships that we received from the UNDP. And in terms of the exchange rate, the sponsorship exceeded the actual expenditure, and the arrangements with the UNDP was that the department can retain that particular amount. Thank you, actually. I trust that all of that has been answered.
Thank you, Johannes. Then the further questions by Member Masipa, there was the question on the capacity building targets, the reduction in that, as well as in terms of the SMME support. We call that it's a combined indicator in terms of by different components in the department doing the capacity building. We're tracking the need on an annual basis from those that we partner with, but also those that we specifically present the capacity building for. And we're obviously trying to not just chase the numerical target, but to make it count in terms of it being responsive and impactful. But maybe to ask maybe Karen Shippey to come in. The program 6 is where we coordinate a lot of the work. The SMME support, there's also a specific focus there. Maybe, I don't know whether Gottlieb also wants to come in on some of the capacity building, and then we'll turn to Cape Nature in terms of the revenue question. Go ahead, maybe Karen and then Gottlieb.
Thank you very much. So the teams that actually do the dedicated capacity building are very limited, and you're quite right, the fiscal squeeze has hurt everybody. So we have reduced the numbers. As HOD says, it is about making sure that we do quality engagements and that we actually assist people. We're not just reaching numbers without that quality and depth. But what we have done is you will see that in the budgets there is a specific amount for a program that we're working with under the Green Economy Ecosystem Support program, and that we're actually outsourcing at the moment for 2024 and 2025. It has been Green Cape who's been assisting us with that, and there we have targets of over 400 SMMEs and businesses to engage with. So we've shifted focus a little bit in terms of where and how we're engaging with those entities and how we're doing our capacity building. We've also, during our organizational redesign process, this is one of those conversations about how do we prioritize the resources that we have to make sure that that capacity building is going to exactly where it's needed, and importantly, when it's needed. So you don't want to come after the fact, after there've already been errors and problems. You really want to get in ahead of the issues. So we work very closely as well with Cape Nature. They are going to be speaking in a moment, but Cape Nature also does a huge amount of capacity building. So between us, we're really trying to share the load and the need. We also work with a lot of NGOs as well. So trying to make sure that our influence is broader than just what we can afford to do, but what we can do with our partners, so that we give them the necessary tools and materials so that they can also build capacity as they go. Thank you very much for the question.
Thank you, Karen. Gottlieb, on the SMME, preparing refurbishment. Thank you.
Yes, Gerrit, thanks for that. I'll ask Salim to just elaborate on the SMME program, if you don't mind. Thank you, Chair.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, honourable members, Minister, and also fellow colleagues. Yes, we had a program that's been running for 2 years now, where we are trying to stimulate the circular economy and also trying to address vulnerable communities in crime hotspot areas. And this is really to try and upskill them in terms of basically becoming repairers of household electrical appliances, and we were targeting the kitchen appliances. And in year 1, we had 15 youth. In the first instance, it was all females that we utilized, and successfully took them through a training program, and then also tried to get them incubated in some of the companies where they could actually learn some of the in-house skills as well. We then followed it up with a second program, which occurred last year. The year there was a mix of both male and female, but still targeting the youth. And again, quite successfully run in terms of getting the 15 people through. In fact, it was 13 that came through at the end. And yeah, just to make sure that we can upskill them, get them through. And next step would be to try and get them into various incubation areas so that they can just further develop what they've learned in theory from the 3-month training that was provided to them. We intend to do that again in the following financial year, and also then to look at maybe extending this into some of the other sectors as well. But we do require some additional funding for that, to just do a scoping so that we can plan accordingly for that. I hope and trust that answers it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Salim. We'll then turn to the Cape Nature question in terms of whether the 10% increase in revenue is whether the target is maybe too low.
Thank you, HUD. Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Honourable Masipa for the question. As I begin speaking, I will just ask Mr. Shiraz Ismail, who is the Executive Director for Ecotourism Access, to add in after I introduce the answer. There's a lot of debate on where we should set the increase annually, Honourable Member. Traditionally, this was set at a fixed sort of 6 to 7% in line with CPIX. We've extended that slightly to 10%, and there are a few limiting considerations. One, we're not opening any new sites for income, so we're continuing with the sites that we have. We are maintaining and upgrading them through our infrastructure grants. Secondly, there is a trend over the last 3 years, but it was confirmed this year, where day visitors increased overnight. Day visitor income increased overnight visitor income. That has been a trend for a while, but this year that it overtook it and confirmed that. So we're looking at offering more day visitor picnic sites opportunities. And then our visitor numbers are not always tied to income. As Cape Nature, we have an access mandate, ecotourism and access mandate. So we do provide a range of opportunities for schools from the various quintiles, offering various discounts, and community groups to access that. So we don't always link increase in access numbers. There have been increases with income, because where we can derive income, we do. But we have an access, and a lot of that is at discount or subsidized rates. Then the winter months are times when people in the Western Cape don't generally get out, and we are focusing on some of our offerings around what can be done during the winter months when people there are decreases in visitor numbers around that. So if you look at an annual average of people visiting the various Cape Nature reserves, you may conclude that there's opportunity to increase visitor numbers. But if you exclude the winter months, you find that the summer months, there's generally very, very good uptake, and around the holiday periods and public holidays. And then lastly, which is one that we don't know where to draw the line, we're learning from the last 3 years, is around fires and floods. There was a noticeable decrease this year around the end of December, beginning of January, in visitor numbers at some reserves. And it's not only the direct impact of the fires, but also when there are fires and smoke in and around the reserve areas or mountain areas, people are hesitant to travel out. So the reserves may not be directly impacted. Some were directly impacted with closures due to fires and floods, but generally people are hesitant to travel out if there's smoke in the area, or they're concerned about being stuck in remote areas with families. So those are some of the considerations. Over the last 3 years, we have tried to optimize where we can. I think we moved from around averages 55 to 60 million. We're now at around 75 million. And our 5-year target is to get that to around 100 million a year. And we should get very close to that if we increase by 10%. There's another note in the margin in that we are currently rolling out the disaster funding projects that we received to improve the roads that were damaged by the floods. This will impact operations, but once these are done, hopefully we can increase the numbers of people in and around the small towns and reserves where the Cape Nature reserves are, and we'll look for the impact on that, and hopefully there'll be a positive impact around many of these improved road access projects that are currently being rolled out with the disaster funding allocation we received last year. Mr. Ismail, do you want to add any more comments to this?
Thank you, CEO. Maybe just the other comment that I want to add is that obviously we've got a number of big capex projects that we need to deliver on in the new financial year, which obviously means that those reserves will have to be closed for an extended period of time, 5, 6, 7 months in some instances, where you will not be generating money off those reserves due to closures. And also the impact of the disaster management funding, it's 183 million. We've got a list of about 28 different projects. The bulk of those projects are road projects, bridge projects, which will have that knock-on effect on visitor numbers, but as well as on revenue generation. We manage a huge fleet of tourism assets across the Western Cape. And you know, your popular products like the Whale Trail, Kochelbergs, all of those things, because of the high frequency and the huge numbers of visitors that's coming through there. Every 5 to 6 years, you actually have to close that product down and do the necessary maintenance, because if you're running with those high occupancies, maintenance does become a problem in the long run. So you're literally forced to close down a reserve to give attention to those wear and tear maintenance issues. And then obviously the CEO did mention the impact of climate change. We're seeing it now with regards to floods, fires. I just got a report back about 2 weeks ago with the Cederberg fires out at Algeria. We're seeing people cancelling now, even though the fires are behind us in the Cederberg, because literally, as far as the eye can see, everything is burnt to a crisp. And people are cancelling because that is not what they want to see when they go on holiday. So there's so many variable factors that plays into why we need to set these conservative targets. You know, if we generate more money, but we'll welcome it. But I think we also need to be cautious with what is happening in the sector and in the economy. Thank you, CEO. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for those responses. Then we're turning to the questions by Honourable Member Mare. In a minute, I'll ask the CFO to come in on there was the question about the expenditure reviews and whether there's any programs in the department that have been underperforming, where we haven't achieved, you know, the high enough expenditure levels, whether we maybe haven't been having the impact, and whether we have been reviewing our programs. So I'll ask CFO to come in on that in a minute. But just to speak to the question on the enforcement, I'll ask Ahmad if he wants to add, but just to say that we agree it's a critical area as part of the educated, healthy and caring society portfolio, the One Health work to look after the health of the residents, of the environment and of the economy. The law enforcement work is a critical part of that. What's not reflected in the budget there, if you look at that program and enforcement, is the compliance work that happens by the other components. So there's a lot of work that's underway that happens elsewhere, that's funded through other budget items in terms of compliance promotion, where we do the compliance work and the monitoring work, where we do the environmental auditing work that comes in through the permitting. But then, yes, the enforcement work is a critical component. At times, there are matters that requires enforcement action. We do very specifically prioritize in terms of the triaging. In terms of their programs, we participate with national, in terms of sectoral, you know, the blitz operations that's undertaken, joint operations with SAPS and the national colleagues and our own environmental management inspectors. Just to note that that we have increased the allocation to enforcement by 36.7%, so that is a critical increase in order for us to, you know, give more attention to this critical aspect of the work. But the efforts continue to promote compliance with different sectors, We're working very particularly with the agricultural sector. There's work underway in terms of the chemicals that we're busy with as part of the One Health, so specific targeted interventions. Ahmad, I don't know whether you want to add in terms of the enforcement question.
Hi, HOD. I know you've covered everything. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ahmad. Then in terms of we're gonna turn to Johannes, but just to alert that I'll ask Gottlieb and Natasha in terms of the question by Member Mare on the allocation for the rehabilitation and whether we doing enough in terms of the aquatic systems, maybe for you to come in on the Western Cape water resilience strategy. And in our own work as part of that, the programs that we will be rolling out and further work to be taken forward. But first, then over to Johannes on the question on the programs that have been reviewed and as part of the work. Johannes.
Thank you, HOD. So yeah, in terms of spending reviews, quite a number of spending reviews were done by GTech with the National Treasury over the last few years. One did focus on the COE element within the department. And as indicated earlier, a significant portion of our budget is towards COE. So these are the investments in terms of our HR capacity to execute our responsibilities. We did let me call it now a cursory review when we compiled the budget. We had to look at the annual reports and the targets reflected within the annual reports and how we achieve those targets. And throughout the last few financial years, most of the targets were either achieved at the full 100% or just below what we set. And there were reasons for those, of which capacity were one of the elements in terms of the reasons. It's important to note also that, as I indicated earlier, we are in an OD phase now, that we're revisiting our structure, making sure that we've got the right posts on our establishment to service the needs of the department and eventually then to service the needs of the citizens. The earlier presentation also reflected on some of the additional needs. So we did put forward business cases to Provincial Treasury to indicate that if we want to achieve this particular targets, and we focus on water resilience, we focus on the disaster, we focus on air quality. If we want to make significant impact on these, we do need additional resources. And that formed part of our cursory review of our spending reviews for the last few financial years. We put forward the business cases to Provincial Treasury, and we were successful in being allocated those funds. The challenge now for us lies in utilizing the money efficiently, making sure that we appoint those people in these the vacancies that will be coming through from this additional allocations. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Johannes, for that response. It's a critical, this is but the current phase of allocation in terms of the journey that we're on. We know that we're trying to keep a pace in terms of shifting priorities and the changes that we're busy with. And the implementation readiness, a key part of the review that's also done by Treasury in terms of making sure that the priority areas that's coming through, whether the projects have been properly developed, whether the projects are ready, whether we've demonstrated the capability to implement, and then also what would that speed of delivery be. And we are gearing, so you will see as we move forward over the years also that there will be a scaling and acceleration in particular areas. But it is about the efficient ongoing reviews in terms to make sure that we are having the priority impacts for the residents and that we are efficient and effective in how we in our service delivery models and the work that we're doing. The OD being a critical part of that work. We've already done an organizational functional assessment last year as a key informant to the work, but that work is ongoing in terms of the ensuring effectiveness in terms of the expenditure and performance reviews. I'll then ask Gottlieb to come in on the last question that hasn't been responded to yet in terms of the Western Cape Water Resilience Strategy and related work. Thank you, Gottlieb.
Thank you, HOD. Good morning, honourable members, through you, Chair. So yes, the Sustainable Water Protection Plan has 3 focal areas. The first focal area being ecological infrastructure, the second one being water quality and pollution management, and the third one, water sensitive design. So we have been, for the previous decade, been working on restoration work in particularly. So that fall under the focus area, the ecological infrastructure. That funding came to an end about 2 years ago. So active restoration, what that means is that we're after the alien clearing programs of the various authorities and entities, natures involved in that as well, and also the funding through the environmental affairs and various agencies. We have gone in and actively rehabilitated with indigenous plants the riparian zones. There is a more strategic focus through the renewed Sustainable Water Protection Plan under that focal area. And so we're very much working with the partners. We have different organizations and also platforms, governance platforms, where communities and other entities and authorities are involved, like UPCHEC, and then also in your Berg River, there's a number of entities, your water users associations. So it is working together in partnership and also still ensuring that active restoration work goes ahead. Where our funding for the new year is focused on is on the nature-based solutions. How do we arrest pollution from pollution hotspots? So that obviously have to minimize the impact on the ecosystems and also on our water quality, to improve the water quality. So the funding which we got, the earmark funding, which we got for this year, 1 million, will be focused on especially where we're looking at the hotspots from wastewater treatment works, the pollution from there, and obviously our informal settlements. But looking at provincial and municipal land, where we can then introduce the various nature-based solutions in terms of minimizing and arresting that pollution. So that's in terms of basically restoration, as well in terms of ensuring that the ecosystems are improved. So that's in terms of where we focus on HOD and chairperson members. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gottlieb, for that. I don't know whether Natasha wants to add to that.
Just also apologies from Natasha. You have excused
yes, that's
her.
Right.
She's at the memorial service. Members,
that's right, for a colleague.
Yeah,
that's right.
Of an ex-colleague. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. So we covered the chairperson. Back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gerber. Our condolences to Natasha as well, and obviously we're thinking of her. All right, look, I mean, I think most of the questions that I was going to ask have been covered. The only one that I would like to raise is just in terms of air quality management. I mean, it's great to see the investment that's going in there. It's a slightly broader question, just in terms of our working relationship with the South African Weather Service. I know they run their own monitoring systems as well. What is the working relationship like currently? I know that they had struggled for a number of years to maintain the functionality of many of their air quality monitoring systems. If you can just maybe give us a little bit of feedback there. That's really my only point. Apart from that, the budget is looking very positive in my estimation. And I'm just going to open up and see if there are any other questions. We have Member Van Wyk. Is there anybody else who wants to ask another follow-up question? Member Stoffel and Member Murray. All right, Member Van Wyk, we'll start with you.
Hi there, Chair. Yes, just, I want to share your sentiments, Chair, in terms of the budget that this department has got. It certainly would appear to me that the car dealers of the funding have certainly looked fairly favorably on this department. And I think it's very good to see the increases that are coming in a number of areas there. Perhaps just a little bit of an elaboration on waste management and the BFI aspect. We could perhaps just sketch that out. And, I can see that there's a fair amount of effort going into RECEP and the work on developing township economy. If there can perhaps just be some brief commentary on those two aspects. But otherwise, I think, most of the areas have been covered already. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much, Member Stoffel.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, can I proceed? Am I audible?
Yes, you may, ma'am.
Thank you, thank you. Chairperson, let me appreciate the response so far. The department is doing very well in the response. But Chair, I think there's an issue that we can maybe refer to the committee then, or take it up with the committee discussions, the issue of this environmental assessment. Partly I'm covered and partly I'm not, so I don't want to delay today's proceedings because of that. I think I can take it up within the committee itself. But then, Chair, I will go to page 386, the budget decisions, whereby Cape Nature has been allocated an increase from 357 million in the year 2026 and 2027, constituting 48% of the vote, of which 391 million in 2028-2029, and an overall growth of 9.6% over the MTFE. So my question is, how is value for money ensured, given that nearly 48% of that vote goes to Cape Nature? And then coupled with that, still on page 386, compensation of employees remain the largest expenditure. And the component with 2026 and 2027 financial reflect that the personnel costs comprise approximately 76% of the department's total allocation. So my question is, what is the current vacancy rate in the Department of Environmental Planning? How much of the COE allocation went unspent in the previous year? And has any portion of COE funding been reallocated during adjustments due to unfilled posts? Then I go to 389 when it comes to water security. We all know most what we are facing. Attaining water security means in ensuring that water is available, accessible, sustainable, human health, ecosystem, and economic production. My question is to the department, what is the department doing to assist municipalities that are experiencing drought, and more, once again, concentrated on the municipalities with the recovery plan? And then also, when you go to page 393, payments, Department further receive a financial incentive portion of 3.9 million linked to the first phase and early retirement. Now, my question is, what long-term CE or COE savings are expected from the retirement program, and when will this materialize? Because we're talking long and long and long, but when will this thing be implemented? And then also, in terms of, let me go to 394, summary of payments, program administration, program 1, administration 2026-2027, allocation is 95.5 million. There was an increase of 24.7 from the revised estimated. What is the specific administrative expansion justify the 24% increase? I hope my question is capturable. And yes, let me go also to 401 earmark allocation, 9.9 million and 10 million for energy green economy ecosystem support green economy firms and municipalities through markets and so forth. So my question is, what measurable outcomes will be delivered through the energy green ecosystem support project? How does the program contribute to water resilience and drought responses? And then take in cognition what my question was in terms of these municipalities that I have mentioned. And then also, pardon me, Chair, and then also, I think it's, yeah, 405, Program 4, to establish and implement legislative policies, norms, standards, and guidelines, as well as quality management. Now, my question is, how many vacancies will be filled under this program? Remember, you have mentioned 70.8 million is being allocated. So my question is based on that amount being allocated to that program. How many vacant posts will be filled under this program? And what is that vacant space? My last one before I can give over to you, Chair. 410, summary of payments and estimation program, biodiversity and conservation management. Biodiversity and protected areas planning management. Total budget there was 376 million. Largest portion goes against to Cape Nature. So because of that, what oversight mechanism ensure Cape Nature delivers measurable biodiversity and climate outcomes? What portion of nature, Cape Nature funding support community-based conservation and job creation? I will pause now, Chair.
Thank you very much, Member Stoffel. Before I hand over to Member Marais, and I see Member Sipa's also got his hand up, some of those questions are very detailed, good questions, very detailed questions. So I am going to just maybe mention to the officials in preparation for that now, if there are more specific stats and information that you're not able to provide now, maybe we could receive that in written in a written response at a later stage. Yeah, we don't have to answer all of those in specific detail, because otherwise we might be here for a very long time. But I think those are very good questions that do require answers. Member Marais.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I want to thank the HOD for the response and the department. I also note in mentioning the 36.7% increase in terms of compliance and enforcement, where they will allocate the additional funding to enforcement capacity, which is welcome. I've always felt that we need boots on the ground when it comes to the environment. And that is certainly something that pleases me this morning to hear this and to see it. Mr. Chair, I just want to touch something that Member Masipa mentioned, which triggered something, and I just want to ask the department, perhaps Cape Nature, is there any funding being spent or allocated to the training of tour guides from the indigenous people a component of our society? You know, the tourism sector is a booming sector at the moment. And I just wonder whether that particular benefit that comes to Cape Nature is also in terms of job creation. Are they creating opportunities for the indigenous people of Knysna and these beautiful scenic routes and places also to be trained up as tour guides? Is there a program that I perhaps am not seeing in this book that focuses on job creation, but for the indigenous communities, local communities, that can also benefit in terms of the socio-economic impact of this particular sector, the ecotourism sector? Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Member Marais. Member Masipa, I'm going to let you have a question now because I know you're going to be clear and concise, and we won't have to hold it over for another one. So off you go.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Mine is short and concise. Chair, you know, with regards to water security, I know that it's a competent area of this particular portfolio or standing, particular department. But obviously, you know, corruption, maladministration, and incompetence is not within this particular space. I think the question really, on page 83, it talks about, you know, focal areas, all, is all to contribute positively to water availability and water quality. I think the question is, what are these factors, you know, how are these factors like maladministration, incompetency, and corruption affecting the work of this department in ensuring that, you know, the water quality and water security, you know, is maintained across all the municipalities? Thanks, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Member Masipa. Unless the Minister wants to add anything, I'm going to then hand over to the HOD.
Thank you. Just turn back to the questions. Thank you, Chair. You, in terms of the second round, you had the first question on the air quality work, and specifically the working relationship between ourselves and the other role players with the South African Weather Service. I want to ask Gottlieb and Dr. Joy Lina to come in on the question, and maybe to speak to the fact that although we have our own air quality monitoring stations, the network is a broader network of stations, which includes national organs of state. But maybe for Gottlieb and Dr. Lina or Joy to go into some detail there. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, HOD, through your chair. So I will just start briefly just to mention that the South African Weather Service, they do provide a service to the national department, especially to their priority areas up north. So we're talking about the Ball Triangle, the Bajonele area. So the three priority areas which we have nationally. They do also host the South African Air Quality Information System. And so this reporting, which also then happens countrywide into that system, and also where you can then also see the performance of the stations, especially what we call the NACI stations on their dashboard. So that is in essence the relationship, and in terms of supporting them through the national department. But I'll ask my colleague Joy Lina to come in. Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you, Chair, for the question. So, as Gottlieb mentioned, in terms of SOARS, so we work very closely with SOARS. There's also the SAQUIS, which it's an online system in which our 10 monitoring stations report in real time to SAQUIS. And so, in fact, there's a SAQUIS app. I always talk about the SAQUIS app, and that can be accessed on the Play Store, the Google Store. So you can access it there and basically see our 10 monitoring stations in real time. The City of Cape Town also has between 12 and 14. 2 stations are currently decommissioned, so 12 stations reporting to the SAQUIS network. And then also Saldanha Bay Municipality, 2 stations, and then our West Coast District Municipality, also 1 station. So we engage with them regularly to make sure that our data, we can access our data in real time off the network, off the SAQUIS online system. And the opportunity that was given to us now with the funding that came in, we could now also replace our CO2 analyzers, and that will also then be reporting in real time, and that really supports the climate research that the province is doing. And also it forms part of EHACS, which HOD mentioned earlier. And our project specifically focuses on InSight, which is it's an acronym for Integrated Surveillance, Informing Guidance and Health Targets. So there's that strong link with the Department of Health in the One Health system approach. So coming back to SAQUIS and SOARS, we definitely have a very good working relationship and engage with them constantly through DFFE. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, HOD.
Thank you, Gottlieb and Joy. We'll then, Gottlieb, back to you and Salim in terms of the waste management and the budget facility for infrastructure application, the request there for more details.
I'll give it directly to Salim so you can answer that question. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, HOD, and thank you, Gottlieb. And thank you, Honourable Member Van Wyk, for that question. I somehow had a feeling it was going to come. But yeah, I think maybe just to give a short background in terms of what it entails. Waste management has always been very under budgeted for many years. And that has led to a lot of the sort of problems that's sort of coming through the fold as we're experiencing it now. Although it's always said that waste management is a priority, when it came to budgeting, that was never really the case. Quite a lot of the funding went into the other sort of sectors, and the last bits always came to waste management. So this has created quite a lot of backlog in terms of what is really needed for efficient and effective waste management that needs to be undertaken. In addition to that, there's also been changes in legislation. There's been advancements that's been coming through within the waste sector as well. And in fact, with a lot of the legislation that's there, it's very much aligned to sort of first world legislation. So we're talking about costly sort of compliance areas that needs to be maintained. And at all our recent time engagements that we had with municipalities, waste often featured. It was roughly about similar sort of issues that came to the fore. Not having the funds, but having to comply, not having the funds, but having to ensure that there's these sort of service delivery that needs to happen for the citizens. And then, of course, there's also the other aspect of waste in itself can offer great opportunities in terms of the waste economy that's there. So the only way we can really break the camel's back here is if we can get an injection of funding. Back in 2016-17, there was a study undertaken throughout the province in terms of what the infrastructure backlog is. At that stage, it came to about 1.96 billion rand. And when we received the funding from Provincial Treasury a year and a bit ago, we decided to take some of those funds and actually just update that particular report just to see what the current figure is. And the current figure now sits at 3.1 billion rand. And this is actually ideal for an application for the BFI, which stands for Budgetary Framework for Infrastructure, to do that application through National Treasury to see if we can't access that sort of funding to try and just assist and help all the municipalities in the Western Cape, including the struggling ones, so that we can try and just overturn all these sort of issues that's there. In order to access and put the application in, it's quite an onerous, a very detailed sort of process. Capacity-wise, we don't have that internally, and that is why we've requested funding, and we are pleased to have received that funding to actually appoint a service provider to try and put the sort of foolproof, or a very good application together for us to ensure that everything has been taken care of in terms of what's required, and then to submit that to National Treasury so that we can see if we can actually access the 3 billion that we are asking to try and overcome a lot of these sort of shortfalls. So the idea behind all of this is to move, and this is probably going to be over a, let's say, a 10-year horizon in terms of spending that and trying to ensure that all the necessary infrastructure is in place, supporting the new things like the extended producer responsibility that's also come on board, and just try and turn it around for waste management so that we can transition from waste management to circular economy. So by that time, we will not talk waste management. We're going to talk about circular economy. We're going to talk about making better use of resources and ensuring that the actual waste economy that is there can really be amplified in terms of granting these sort of opportunities. And yeah, again, particularly to our SMME communities. But yeah, just in a nutshell, that's what it is. I've just put a pakkie together late last night for a fellow colleague, but I'm happy to take this up with anyone if they'd like to see me, just to get a little bit more details on this as well. Thank you for that.
Thank you very much, Salim. There was a question, Francois, maybe for you to answer in terms of the TAPs, the township economy plans, township action plans. I don't know, and if Zeka wants to add, go ahead, Francois.
Thank you, HOD. Yes, the TAPs or the township action plans, it sounds easy. It's a good idea. And it's a collaboration between the Department of Economic Development and ourselves. Firstly, in terms of township, it also looks at all previously marginalized areas. And the first TAP that was decided to be done is in Mossel Bay. So we're busy with that to set up all the structures and appoint consultants. But it is quite an exciting project, but also quite challenging to narrow down what exactly should be done. And also, obviously, it has to fit in somewhere between the IDP and STF, and then all the work that the economic department also does. Yeah, I think maybe if Zeka, through you, HOD and Chair, if she wants to add, I think welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, HOD, and thank you, Francois. I think that you have covered quite extensively on the TAP project. I think what is important to note is the fact that it is an approach and methodology that is on a pilot approach, and for that reason there is extensive research or baseline work that needs to be done in terms of understanding the township ecosystems and ensuring that we would be able to outroll this pilot to the other areas or townships within the Western Cape. At this stage, we have this one, which is Onongaba at Mossel Bay, that we are busy with. And I think the part of setting up the structures and ensuring that we have the basics correct before we implement and launch has taken quite an extensive process to get everyone on board and all the partners on board. And at this stage, it is quite exciting, as you mentioned, Francois, but a lot of work had to be undertaken to just get the systems correct. So.
Thank you, Fezeka. To then briefly turn to some of the other questions. The question in terms of compensation of employees, we can get back to the committee with more detail. There's a future engagements. We obviously waiting for the budget to be in place, and then we follow the process to decide which posts are critical for filling at which level. So the strategy that then follows in terms of the budget that's then actually allocated. At this stage, we're busy filling 21 posts, but there's more detail that we can provide in terms of, in the different components, where we're at and what are we busy considering. The OD process that's underway, of course, critical in terms of what's to be achieved in the 5 years. What is our resourcing looking like over the MTEF at least, and what does the resourcing then look like from a human resource compensation of employees point of view? It's highly tightly managed across the country, and very specifically in terms of how the budget is allocated, and the compensation of employees ceiling, and then in our department, our expenditure levels are extremely high every year, so there is very little under expenditure, and then in terms of budget adjustment, we can provide that detail, but we don't. There's of course vacancies that arise during the course of the year that's unexpected, and then the recruitment processes must run. And the recruitment processes do take a number of months to conclude. So then we do have the under expenditure that then occur. And what we've done is we've motivated the Treasury to really to assist us with that under expenditure that has occurred, to reallocate that budget back to us, so that once we've concluded on the recruitment process, we can then have that budget back. So that's generally what we then do. Maybe just on the early retirements, Johannes, if you want to briefly come in on that, the process in the country and that we follow in the province, we're very specifically looking at the criteria that we're applying there in terms of impact on service delivery and the cost implications and the potential savings, and how we, firstly as a department, looking at using that cost saving, because generally it would be someone that's at a higher notch, and when you recruit, if you decide to go and fill a post, it would be someone that would then be appointed at the lowest salary notch. So there is then that potential saving. Of course, we're also looking at which post do we need to refill and which are we reconsidering. So there is a projected, in terms of the 7 that we currently have. Johannes, maybe if you briefly want to speak to that.
Thank you, actually. So the projected saving for the 26-27 financial year is just below 2.5 million. As actually indicated, it is dependent on the salary level and then the notch. In most instances, the officials that requested to retire early were on the maximum notch, and the post, if the post will be filled, will be on the starting notch. We may also consider to fill some other posts. Yeah, but the projected saving at this stage for 26-27 is just below 2.5 million. Thank you, actually.
Johannes, maybe also to come in on the question by Member Stoffels in terms of the program 1 on administration and the variance there, the 24%.
Thank you, actually. So the 24% is a combination of vacancies. One, so during the current financial year, in particular after the adjustment also, we had quite a significant number of resignations within the department, but particular support services under administration. And because of that, there is a reduction in terms of 25-26. The intent, therefore, is to fill these posts, and that will be in 26-27, hence the increase of compensation of employees in 26-27. We also received the additional allocations as indicated for the automation. That is just below 500,000 that we received. Then we received 6.5 million for the upgrading and the refurbishment of our registry space in terms of the infrastructure thereof. And then just below 1 million we received as part of the early retirement funding that we will need to pay to the exiting employees. This pertains to program 1. We also made a provision or additional provision for traveling for both the minister and the HOD. Past baselines were insignificant, and in most instances, those were funded through reprioritization. For this current new cycle, we had to look at it, and we reprioritize upfront already to accommodate the traveling requirements of the office of the HOD and the ministry. Yeah, and I think the last one is just in terms of our capital equipment. We're busy with the Windows 11 upgrade process, so we will also replace some of our ICT equipment. Those are the bulk of those expenditure items that leads to the 24% increase.
Thank you, Johannes. There was a question by both Member Stoffels and Masipa on the municipalities and water. The municipalities as the Water Services Authority and our work in support of the municipalities. Those are the Western Cape water security, the water resilience plan, as well as our part of that. We work closely with the Department of Local Government, Provincial Treasury, Department of Water and Sanitation in terms of working with the municipalities in terms of the planning and the implementation of the water services. And of course, there's also the work that comes into that in terms of our compliance monitoring and our law enforcement work. But there's an annual process where we're zooming in on the areas of compliance and performance of each municipality. There's of course national systems, blue drop, green drop, no drop, and related work. So there's ongoing support to the municipalities. We, of course, trying to make sure that we're looking after the water source in terms of managing both the volume and the quality. But then, yes, particular work with the municipalities that we're doing with the Department of Local Government. And in terms of any maladministration, of course, there's very specific processes in terms of those investigations and support work that is underway with particular municipalities. As well as at the times, whether it's financial recovery plans or related work that is undertaken. Maybe then to turn and to wrap up in terms of the responses. I'll ask Karen to come in firstly on the GEES in terms of the question about what specifically will that program achieve, and in terms of responding to drought, water resilience. But then there was also the question in terms of the oversight of Cape Nature and making sure that there's value for money. So maybe you and Marlene can both speak to the Cape Nature oversight, the management effectiveness, the benchmarking, the governance that's in place there. But maybe first GEES. And then the Cape Nature oversight. Thank you.
Thank you, HOD. I'd like to quickly call in Ron Mukanya, who's the project director for GEES. Please go ahead, Ron.
Thanks, Karen. Thanks, HOD. Good morning, Minister. Good morning, honorable members, and good morning, colleagues. So on the green economy ecosystem, I'm just going to make a couple of reflections. So firstly, in the water space, our market intelligence report of 2025 identified a 32 billion rand investment portfolio of opportunities in the water sector. So most of these opportunities lie within the localization of manufacturing of components, so mainly your pumps and wastewater treatment works. So we actively have to track what's going on within that sector. And then when you look at the energy space, the Western Cape is essentially South Africa's renewable energy hub. And I think as we speak today, we capture close to 70% of the country's components manufacturing. And there's also a drive nationally through the South African Renewable Energy Master Plan to further target additional localization when it comes to manufacturing. And if you look at the quantum of the gigawatts that are expected to be generated by 2030, the expectation is that 6 gigawatts will come from solar and an additional 4 gigawatts will come from wind. And we also need to bear in mind that the Western Cape is an export-oriented province. So our exports need to remain competitive on the global market, where we all know that the European markets, as an example, have introduced the carbon tax. So the HERS, as we popularly call it, right, enables us to respond to some of these challenges. From a deliverable point of view, the opportunities that I've already highlighted, both in energy and water, then create opportunities for our local industry, especially the small to medium enterprises. So over an annual basis, we aim to support at least 400 local industry players to then take advantage of those opportunities, which our market intelligence reports identify on an annual basis. And we produce 2 market intelligence reports, one specifically on water and the other one specifically on energy. We also then undertake events. So it's all good and well to produce market intelligence reports, but we then need to engage with industry role players. So we do convene events that focus on the opportunities in both energy and water. And we also actively then undertake awareness raising campaigns so that our industry is prepared for what's coming. So obviously with the EU carbon border adjustment mechanism that kicked in January this year, we would have been running an active campaign last year already so that it doesn't come across as a surprise. And we also identify good practices within the industry itself. So we then put together industry briefs that we can share more broadly with the industry. And we also need to lobby our national sister departments. So at times the national departments are putting new regulations out. So we also then need to go through a process where we provide comments and technical advisory reflections into those processes. And as we all know, business activity happens in a municipality somewhere. So we need to make sure that our municipalities are geared up for some of the requests. So we then support the municipalities to have the respective frameworks that are needed to enable businesses to thrive. And then lastly, from an impact point, so we've done a sort of conservative back of the envelope calculation. So people always ask us, you've invested 9 million Rand into this process, what are we getting out of it? And I think the figures that we have are telling us that we've attracted an estimation of 7 billion Rands worth of investment over the next 5 years, just by the 9 million that we've put. So those are the reflections and comments from my side. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Ron. I don't think I can add to that. That was an excellent summary of the HERS program. If I may, Mr. Chair, I'm just going to quickly share the slide that we've done on our oversight. If you can see my screen.
Yes, we can see your screen. If you can maybe just maximize it. Yeah, there we go. Perfect.
Excellent. So this really gives you in a nutshell what it is that we do with Cape Nature. Obviously, Cape Nature and ourselves share this space in terms of how we service the environmental sector program. So the structure that we have between the department's budget programs and Cape Nature are intersected. And really, Program 5 is where all of this comes together. We've obviously got the overarching 5-year strategies, both for the department and for Cape Nature. These were written and planned together so that we complement each other. And then being able to go into the annual planning from there we're really just pulling down from what national is asking us to do, what we've identified locally within the province, and then which of those things are going to be there for an annual cycle. So that's on the planning side. We then have an addendum to our cooperation agreement with Cape Nature that unpacks exactly what it is that we're expecting of them and how we're going to measure them, and confirming our joint priorities. So this is something which binds us. I think very few entities actually have this, but it means that it binds the working of the department and Cape Nature intimately in terms of exactly how we prioritize. In terms of making sure that on a day-to-day basis, we're getting value for money, we have the monthly in-year monitoring that happens through the financial channels, but then we also have a quarterly check-in with the technical committee, and this is more performance management. So we look at the indicators, whether or not there are any issues with achieving indicators and targets, and then we as a department go into a meeting ourselves where we will then discuss whether or not we're comfortable with all of that. We also sit on the Cape Nature board and their various subcommittees to make sure that we're privy to what is going on from a governance perspective and that we're comfortable with how the board is being briefed. And then we write a quarterly oversight report to our accounting officer that actually enables us to make sure that under the PFMA that we are actually receiving value for money. We're responding specifically to the obligations under the Western Cape Biodiversity Act. Cape Nature has been able to restructure and put those mechanisms in place. We, as you've heard today, are currently running through our organizational redesign process so that we can also adapt to what the law is requiring us to do. But this is what we do on a regular basis. So there's monthly as well as quarterly engagements and feedback and reporting that we do on Cape Nature. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Over to Ashley then on the tour guide question. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members, for the questions. Before the tour guide question, which I'll hand over to Mr. Ismail, who has to provide the background and where we have some activities, especially with the People and Parks program. Just to answer the first question, I think, around community involvement and spend with community. And there are two aspects, two broad categories here that I'd just like to speak to. The EPWP funding allows us to employ around 450 people on 3-year contracts, and these are largely drawn in the areas in and around the reserves from municipalities in and around the reserves. In addition to that, to those 450 formal appointments who in effect become Cape Nature staff for 3 years, and then we provide the basic regulatory training for depending on what activities they're doing, if it's guides, front office, alien tree removal, fire break maintenance. So all of their various regulatory requirements on how to use equipment safely, first aid, so that's provided through the funding, and then they become core staff. In addition to that, we then create in our APP 700, and for that figure we'll then move to 1,200 to next year, job opportunities where we have various contractors working in and around the Cape Nature managed areas, and these are various aspects from small construction, maintenance, gate guarding, tourism support activities, and so between the 450 and the 1,200, those are direct jobs in and around the municipalities throughout the province where Cape Nature is active on that. And then for the specifically the tourism guide question, I'll move over to Mr. Ismail. Thank you, Shiraz.
Thank you, CEO. Thank you, Chair. Cape Nature doesn't have a dedicated tour guide program, but what we do is we meet on a regular basis with both the Department of Economic Development and Tourism and Wesgro. The Department of Economic Development and Tourism does have a program where they do tour guide training. We are yet to meet this year. I think our first engagement with them is set up for April, where they will share with us what is their plans with regards to projects, interventions, partnerships, collaborations for the new financial year. I do know they've got the program. It depends on where the sector is going and what is happening in the sector. Sometimes they do refresher training for existing tour guides, and sometimes there are opportunities to onboard new participants into that program. We have also met with our People and Parks chairperson in the Western Cape, myself and the CEO. That was late last year, where we also committed that whenever there's opportunity for communities to develop skills like tour guiding and any other economic opportunities, that we will choose that as one of our platforms, the People and Parks programs, because we've got a program that runs the length and width of the Western Cape. That information will filter to them, and they will make sure that communities get access to these type of opportunities. So I do know that DDAT's got a program, and we often occasionally have to partner with them on initiatives like this. Thank you, CEO. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. That's the last of the responses.
Are we all done from your side, Mr. Gerber?
Yes, back to you, Chair. Thank you.
All right, fantastic. Colleagues, I think we've had some very comprehensive responses from the department. As always, we have become accustomed to getting all the information that we ask for, and I think they've done a fantastic job of answering all of those questions. I am going to just ask then if there is anything else that members would like to ask of the department now. In terms of this Q&A, we have one last question from Member Stoffel. Member Stoffel, you will be the last question.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I want to let me thank the department for the response, HOD. Thank you very much. But Chair, I want to agree with you in terms of my first question. The one of where is it now? The one of on 386 pertaining the compensation of employees, because there was a lot of questions that I've asked. So you have indicated if the department don't have an answer, maybe they can respond to us at a later stage. So that questions, I want that on writing. The response of that, I want it on writing. I'm not sure whether department have captured that. And then also the one on 401, the earmark allocation, the one of the energy and green economy that was being explained by which official here. So I asked Chair, what measures outcome will be delivered through that energy and green ecosystem? So there was been answer, but based on some information that the department was not clear, that they still have to go and track. I would also have asked that question on the response on writing, Chair, if possible, through you, Chair. Then on the one, yeah, and then there was this one under on 405, page 405, program 4. How many vacant posts will be filled under the program? And then I didn't hear any response. They just said to me they have still go and check. I think that one also it's necessary for me. And then the last one is the one of Cape Nature, the biodiversity and protected area planning management. I wanted to know what oversight mechanism ensure Cape Nature delivers measurable biodiversity and climate outcomes. What portion of Cape Nature funding support community-based conservation and job creation? That was not answered, Chair. And Chair, my last question is based on table on 414 on table 9.61. The extreme small portion allocated to environmental education, community awareness, public employment programs. I want to know from the department, why is environmental empowerment allocated less than 2 million, despite its importance for climate awareness and community participation? This is a question that we have asked constantly even within the committee itself. So, Chair, I wanted to just to verify with the department. They can ask me, Chair, sorry, they can ask if they are not clear in terms of the questions, Chair. Thanks, Chairperson.
Sorry, Member Stoffel, just say that last sentence again. I didn't catch it. You said they can ask what?
They can, sorry, Chair, I was, I forgot
No, sorry, I
to
just didn't.
unmute.
Yeah, just say it again.
They can ask me the questions if they are not sure what was the question and that I have asked
for clarity.
Yeah.
Okay.
For clarity,
all right.
yeah.
Okay. Thanks. Mr. Kerber, as we mentioned earlier, I mean, there is obviously an opportunity to submit maybe the more detailed responses. I see you've written in the box to Dr. Naidu there. But perhaps some of these can be written responses, and we can then deal with that when we get to our resolutions, just to finalize exactly what we require still for Member Stoffel. But over to you, Mr. Gerber.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Thank you, Member Stoffels. In terms of the, absolutely, we must, as a committee, also look at the posts that will be filled. In terms of the budget that's being allocated over the MTEF, and then we would have the figures in terms of which posts are then vacant and funded, and the tracking that we do in terms of those vacancies. So we'll be able to then share that with the community, with the committee. In terms of the fees, there's we can certainly submit the more detailed information to the committee in terms of the fees, what the specific how many help desk matters are dealt with, and the market intelligence reports and the information that's released there. And then in terms of program 6, Karen, maybe if you want to respond to that, we don't have any. Program 6 is a combined program in the sense that there's a number of departments that deliver against program 6, but we don't have any staff in program 6. The staff sit elsewhere. That's why it looks like program 6 is underfunded, yet the capacity building are being rolled out by our own staff that are funded from elsewhere. But of course, the GIS is a critical program that also now does capacity building and support, and there is related work in other programs. But Karen, maybe a brief response to program 6, and I think that would then be it for this round. Thank you.
Thank you, HOD, and thank you, Member Stoffels. We think it's an incredibly important point that you're raising. We'd love to have a much larger program. As HOD says, the salaries of our staff are in other programs, so they don't reflect it there. Otherwise, the program would look a lot bigger. But what we've done, because we do have funding constraints, is whilst the capacity building is undertaken by the various units, depending on what the theme is. So if it's waste management, it's undertaken by Salim's team. If it's water quality, it's undertaken by Natasha's team. So in addition to the normal work that those staff are doing, they will also do capacity building efforts during the year. But the environmental awareness specifically tends to be quite focused on our schools. So what we've been doing, because we don't have a lot of budget there, is supporting our Western Cape Education Department with materials, supporting the curriculum advisors so that our teachers are better able to actually teach what's in the CAPS curriculum. We also run the Western Cape Environmental Education Forum, or as it's popularly known, EE Friends. And we have a number of NGOs who partner with us, including some municipalities as well, like the City of Cape Town, who, wherever there is activity happening, we make sure that we try and align with that, excuse me, and feed to them any materials that we have. We try and facilitate and enable what they're doing so that the reach that we have is that much broader. So yes, we agree with you. We'd love to make it even larger than that, but we are doing everything we can to reach people who need the messaging. On the climate change education, we've actually been instructed to do a corporate strategy for climate change communications to make sure that all of the departments across the Western Cape government have a specific expectation and understanding that they will also support the need to educate our citizens as well as the staff, to be honest, on climate change and what it looks like for our people and how we actually need to build a more resilient Western Cape. So we're hoping to see that effort is actually going to be a lot more permeated across the Western Cape government and not just with our department. So we have a tendency to try and make the work that we are needing to get done by as many hands as possible rather than just our department. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Back to you.
Thank you very much for those responses. All right. I think before we close this open part of the meeting with all of the officials present and we move on to our resolutions, I just want to thank everybody who has participated in the presentations today and the discussions. I also want to make special mention of Sherry Nikak, who is standing in for Mr. Johan Gerber, Mr. Johan Kutsia, who is unfortunately currently just recovering from operation, and we wish him well, but thank you to Ms. Nikak for filling in so ably. Minister, I'm going to hand over to you and Mr. Gerber for any closing remarks from your side, and after that, you and your teams can be released.
Oh, Chairperson, from my side, thank you very much. Yeah, we all need to understand that we work within a certain environment, especially we need to understand that we don't get the ideal budgets, etc., and we compete with health and education and social development, etc. But I think we've got a fair share to work with. And thank you for you and your committee for your oversight role. We appreciate that. We appreciate the questions, the kind of questions you ask speaks directly to our work, and we get a sense of what is important for you also as a committee. So we really appreciate that. And to the whole team, under the leadership of HOD Gerber and Dr. Naidu from Cape Nature, I really appreciate the work, the effort, the ethics that you bring to the table. It's really a privilege and an honor to lead this department and this entity. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Minister. Any closing remarks from your side, Mr. Gerber?
Thank you very much, Chair. Also to thank the committee for your oversight, for the good questions that you always ask. And then thank you, Minister, for the leadership, and thank you to the entire team from the department and for Cape Nature for the continuous good work, and then also for all the good work in the year ahead. Thank you. You're muted. Chair, you're muted.
You're muted, Chair. We can't hear you.
Oh, there we are. Sorry, pushed the wrong button. Thanks again to Mr. Gerber and the Minister, and we'll see you soon, I'm sure, for another engagement. And you are then released, and I'm sure, Minister, we'll see you again on early next week for the next round of our committee's budget deliberations. Committee members, if you can please stay behind, and the rest of the officials can take 30 seconds to please log off. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, colleagues, we are going to get into the resolutions now, but just a couple of housekeeping things. First, we have our first official meeting that is not related to the budget, taking place on the 14th of April. And the agenda for that will be sent out in due course. But just an update on where we currently are with the land use planning amendment bill that we embarked on the public participation and the public hearings for last year. As you know, that we did conduct 4 of those public hearings, and the next step in terms of that process is that a matrix of all of those comments is drawn up and submitted to the department for comment, and then it is processed and comes back to our committee. But as I understand, there was an issue with the processing of that. It's a minor issue, and that is going to be redone and resubmitted. I'm just going to ask Ms. Nikak if she could just give us a little bit more context on that and the next step in terms of that process. So I thought I'd just let you all know that it is still in the pipeline. But Ms. Nikak, is there anything you'd like to add?
Chair, no, I think you covered it. There was quite a few written submissions received in terms of the bill, and then also the oral submissions that were made at the public hearings. Now, those are the submissions that still need to be consolidated, which I will now do and then send it off to the department for comment. So once we've compiled that matrix of the written submissions as well as the oral submissions received on the bill, the department will then come and present that matrix of comments, including their responses to the committee. After that meeting, the committee will then decide which of those comments lends itself to certain amendments. If the committee agrees that there are certain amendments that need to be effected to the LUPA bill, we will then proceed with an A bill. And then the process will unfold from there. That is still the informal stage of the bill, and will then move to the formal process of the bill. The timeline, Chair, the next sitting, because once the committee completes this bill, it needs to submit a report to the House. And it then the bill needs to get onto the order paper for debate before it's assented to by the Premier. At this stage, I'm hesitant to give a timeline because I don't know what's going to unfold in terms of the matrix. So that's where we find ourselves at the moment. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much, Ms. Nikak. Members, I'm not sure if there's any questions on that, but that's just an update. Effectively. We'll then move on to any proposed resolutions in terms of the budget deliberation that has just taken place. I know there were a couple of requests from Member Stoffel for additional written responses, but I am now opening up for any further resolutions. I see Member Van Wyk. Member Van Wyk, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, certainly, I must say it was very pleasing to see this budget for the department, and all of the various programs within the budget have certainly been rewarded with good increases, and we can certainly see that there are various of the projects and the programs that are being undertaken are well supported in terms of funding. So I think, from a committee's point of view, I think we need to be very pleased with the budget that has been allocated to this department. And, I would then first of all want to support the budget and propose that we accept this budget. And I think if there are any further aspects that we need to explore, I think within the budget document, we can see the various programs, and certainly during our ongoing committee meetings, we can then probably ask for further examination and understanding as the year rolls out, because no doubt we're going to be looking at the APP, the annual performance plan, that's going to be coming up, and with that, there's certainly quite a number of areas where I'm sure we could expand our certain knowledge and understanding of what they're doing. But at this stage, I would like to support the budget. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks very much, Member van Wyk, for that and for your expression of support. Obviously, we start to vote on this at a later stage when it comes to the plenary sessions. But thank you. That's definitely noted. Member Murray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, just in terms of, you mentioned that we will first go through some of the resolutions that we'd like to submit to the committee. From my side, I think that the importance of the community involvement and benefit from an eco-tourism sector that is booming is lacking. And I would like to request that the value proposition be presented to the committee in terms of the empowering of local indigenous communities and the benefits that they can derive from ecotourism opportunities. I do note the department's response in terms of EPWP opportunities, but those are short-term benefits in terms of employment. I think what this committee, or what we would like to see, is that the eradication of unemployment in its totality, and also to create ownership models for local communities, not just a 3-year job opportunity, but ownership models. And if it can also include heritage-based tourism as part of the value proposition, if that can be noted, I would appreciate it, sir.
Thank you very much, Member Bray. I'm sure that can be noted. If you can just qualify in terms of when you say localized indigenous communities, is there a specific group that you would like us to focus on, or are we, because obviously there's reserves all across the length and breadth of the Western Cape. So is there a specific area, specific region, or is it just generally the people living in and around those spaces? I just want to clarify that for the minutes.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, as you know, and I know we're bordering a bit on the political side of things, but I think it's an important conversation to have. The Western Cape indigenous people are classified colored people today. They're a large majority of many of these beautiful scenic routes, Knysna, Reenendal, especially, it's a lot of unemployment there. So whether it is Black or colored communities, it is local communities, and especially the core indigenous communities. Their involvement in the ecosystem or eco-tourism sector is lacking. A lot of these lodges that you see that Cape Nature is managing Those are established commercial lodges, and we know that has always been the case. If we are going to make any inroads into eradicating poverty, we need to involve the surrounding communities of these nature conservation areas. And I think that that is something that we need to note in terms of the economic opportunities and the involvement in the community. I hope that's clear enough. I don't want to bring race into the matter, but we know that the Khoi communities have been here way before us, and they live in absolute poverty. They know the plants, they know everything there is to know about the environment, but yet there is no room for them even in the sector, which is a concern to me, when they're actually sitting with all the knowledge.
Thank you very much, Member.
Thank you.
Thank you, Member Marie. Yes, that certainly clarifies your position, and I think we can definitely note that. We'll come back to it when we get to the finalization of the resolutions. Member Stoffel.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I want to support Member the latter speaker, and I'm supporting
Member
Grant
Marais.
Primary. And I'm supporting based on the following reasons. When it comes to EPWP, we all know it's a project from government. That's the first one. The second one is that when they make use of these EPWPs, especially on these reserves, the first one, under what category when it comes to compensation of employees are those people being categorized? Are they being categorized on the stipend that is being given by government, or are they getting a special stipend from the department? They must clarify that to us. And then they must also come with a proper report whereby they indicate to say these EPWPs, which areas, which districts, which municipalities is these people being allocated to? So that we can have a clear picture, what are we dealing with? Because we fear a situation whereby these people is going to be replaced, is replacing the actual implementation of creating jobs and sustainable jobs. Now, these people has been used to do this work, and in the meantime, there's no job creation for our people. There's no sustainable job. So I think I'm supporting on those bases that this department must come back and give us a proper report to the committee to say where does these people fall under, and how is this people to compensation of employees. Then also, Chair, I just want to put an emphasis. The reason why I'm saying there's a need for the department to give us, even for the committee itself, a report or presentation in terms of this environmental assessment that they are talking, that involve new projects, that involve private sector also. Because we want to know, or they must come and tell us, in terms of determining by this assessment of this expertise, in terms of the functioning of this element, but how did they come for those people to get into an assessment? How did they determine what should be assessed? How should it be assessed? And where is this assessment work being done? At what level? Or which municipality? Or what does it include? So there's a lot of uncertainties when it comes to this. So we need that broader report so that we can understand to say the bulk of this assessment is being done by outside people, or is it being done by the people within the department itself? But because the HOD have indicated there is also people inside the department who also is assisting with this type of work. Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure whether I'm clear, Chair. Maybe you can assist too in terms of formulating this thing.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think we've got the general thrust of the resolution. Colleagues, are there any other resolutions that anybody wants to put forward now? I mean, all right. Okay. As I say, you know, we don't have to vote on the item today. It's not a voting matter. This will go to the plenary. But Ms. Nikak, can I just hand over to you in terms of those resolutions? I just want to find out if you have managed to capture some of the resolutions that have come through.
I have, Chairperson. I will circulate it once I've just formulated it myself. I will circulate it to the members to see if they are happy with it. I just want to ask on the first resolution made by Member Marie around the community involvement and benefit from ecotourism. Should that be a briefing or should the department submit the information?
That was my understanding. Was that Member Maria wanted a briefing on that, so we could then ask some questions and interact with it. So, Member Maria, just to respond to Ms. Nikak's question, did we sum that up correctly?
Yes, that sounds very good. I would like a briefing or a presentation on it, so that we can assess whether there's anything being done in terms of the empowerment of local communities and the involvement in benefiting from the ecotourism, as well as their value proposition in terms of this.
Okay, so we'll get the presentation then, Ms. Nikak, on those programs, and then we'll have an opportunity. Just hold on one second. Just hold on one second, Member Marais, and then we can get an opportunity, Ms. Nikak, then to open up for questions on specific items. Yes, Member Marais.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, just in terms of the presentation, it's to be done by Cape Nature as well as the department, and knowing that they are in collaboration with the economic department. I think that is Dr. Ivan Meyer's department, and they said that they're going to collaborate with them in terms of this in April. So I just want to also, I know that they are in collaboration with that department, but I would like a joint presentation, not just by Cape Nature, but the department itself, because they actually work, they don't work in silos, they work together. And I don't know if it is necessary to ask for the Department of Economic and Tourism to also accompany them to this particular presentation. That is to the discretion of the committee. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, we've noted that. We'll put the request through, and once we've formulated it, we'll send it around to the committee for inputs before we formally see how we can set those meetings up later on. Okay. Thank you very much, colleagues. If there aren't any other resolutions, I know many of us will be meeting each other again in an hour or so for the next meeting. Ms. Nikak, you've got your hand up. Ms. Nikak?
Pardon me, Chairperson. I was on mute there. Just to remind you that the committee now has to express its view regarding the vote, so that we can compile our report and adopt it.
Yes. Okay. So, I mean, the committee's view is generally in support, but I'm going to ask then if there is a minority view of anybody who would like to submit a minority view on that. Feel free to raise your hand. Yes, Member Stoffel.
Yes, Chair. As the African National Congress, we just want to raise our minority view, Rule 90, and not supporting.
All right. Is there anybody else who would like to express a minority view? All right. Ms. Nikak, is that acceptable, or do we have to read anything in?
Chair, I'm going to flag the report now so that you can read it into record and so that the committee can adopt it.
Fantastic. All right. Report to the Standing Committee on Local Government, Environmental Affairs and Development Planning on vote 9, Environmental Affairs and Development Planning, in the schedule to the Western Cape Appropriation Bill B1 2026, dated 13th of March 2026, as follows. Standing Committee on Local Government, Environmental Affairs and Development Planning, having considered the subject of vote 9, Environmental Affairs and Development Planning, in the schedule to the Western Cape Appropriation Bill B1 2026, referred to it in accordance with Standing Rule 188, reports that it supports the vote. In accordance with Standing Rule 90, the African National Congress expressed its minority view to not support the vote. Thank you very much.
And we adopt that report as
Can we have a proposer?
correct.
Member Masipa, your hand is up. Do you propose? Member Masipa, can you just put your microphone on there? Are you proposing?
Apologies, Chair. I move to propose that the committee adopt this report. Thank you.
Thank you. I see Member Van Wyk has his hand up. Member Van Wyk, are you seconding?
Yes, I'm seconding, certainly.
Thank you very much, Member Van Wyk. Colleagues, as I understand, that then draws us to the end of our meeting. Ms. Van Niekerk, is there anything else that we have not covered?
Nothing else from my side, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Colleagues, we'll
Thank you
see
very
you a
much.
little bit later, some of you, for Member Masipa's meeting. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Chair.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Chair, members.
Thank you, Shireen.
It's a pleasure. Nomfundo?
Hi, Shireen.
Okay, we're done now, lovey.
Yes, we are.
Thank you
Okay,
very
well,
much. I always wait for you before to tell me, Shireen, you may now exit.
yes. Let me stop the recording. Okay, see you later.
See you later, Norms. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Sure. Bye.